Hi there, my name is Jeff Skinner, and with this video my aim is to lay down sort of a basic groundwork for anybody who's interested in picking up and playing guitar, and especially someone who might think it's a little bit more challenging, a little too daunting of a task for someone like you to pick up. And I hope that with this kind of groundwork you'll see that it's not quite that difficult, and know that with patience and if you stick to it and don't give up, you'll make progress pretty fast, I promise. So the first thing that I want to talk about is just basic parts of the guitar that you're going to hear about a lot, and just kind of explain what those different things are. So the first part, this whole blue section is the body of the guitar. This long skinny section is the neck, and then up here you've got the head. And on the neck, something you're going to hear a lot about is frets. And on it you'll see there are little segments separated by these thin pieces of metal, and each of those segments is a fret. And each of these frets will correspond to its own pitch. So if I play the 3rd fret on the 2nd string, and then I move it up to the 5th fret of the 2nd string, and as you move up the neck, the pitch will get higher. It'll go up half a pitch, with each fret. So what does that mean? This 5th fret here of the low E string is an A, and if I move up 1 fret, that's a half step, which is A sharp. And then if I move up another one, it's another half step, which is a B. So with that out of the way, another thing that you're going to want to pay special attention to when you're playing guitar is tuning. And just like each fret corresponds to its own pitch, each of these individual strings has its own pitch. And each one, you'll notice if you look at it, you probably can't quite see it on the camera, but each one is a little bit different thickness. And the thicker the string is, the lower the pitch it makes. And when you're tuning a guitar, you want to make sure that each string is at the pitch it's supposed to be at. Like this low E string should always be an E whenever you're in standard tuning. There are different kinds of tuning, but we're not going to talk about that because that's a little too complicated right now. You don't really need to worry about that. Standard tuning is what you'll hear most often, so that's what I would say you need to be mostly concerned about if you're just starting out. I was taught there's a little acronym to remember the pitches for the strings in order. And that acronym is a little morbid, but it's Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. So that's how you remember the order of the string pitches is E, A, D, G, B, and E. And if everything is in tune, whenever you go to play something, it should sound right, and hopefully that sounds right on this camera. I promise this guitar is in tune, but I know that it can be a little wonky over the phone. But beyond that, now that you have that kind of basic layout of the guitar, I would say the most important thing for any new guitarist to learn and try to get down and memorize as fast as they can is chords, and just the basic simple chords. I don't think I have quite enough time to go over the basic chords, but I will try and let you hear them. I'll play them, and I'll do the best I can to show you the fingerings. I've got some little diagrams that I drew out, and I'll show those on screen, and you can pause them and try to play them yourself, and I'll show you how they sound, and we'll go from there. So there are 7 notes in music that all have a letter. And the 7 notes are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And each one is a different pitch. And for each of those notes, they have their own major open chord, which is what I'm going to be teaching you, which is one of the easier forms. One thing about guitar is there are a million different ways to play the same chord. I can play an A down here, I can play it up here, I can play it like this, and there are dozens of other ways I can play them. I could probably play it up here. What I'm going to be talking about is the most common and I would say the simplest form of those chords, and that's down here close to the head at the lower part of the fretboard. So the first one, I'm just going to start with A and then move up. So the first chord, that's an A, and it should sound something similar to that. I'm going to show you this diagram, and I'm going to try and explain it as fast as I can just for the sake of time. But hopefully it'll show up too. But as you can see, on this low E string there's an X, and that means that that string is silent. You just won't play that. The second string, the A string, has an O, and that means that that string is open. So you won't press any of the frets. You'll just let that A ring out. And then you'll see below that 2, 1, and 3 that are on the second fret, and that corresponds to your first, second, and your third finger. So you'll put your second finger there on the second fret of the D string. You put your first finger there on the second fret of the G string, and then your third finger there on the second fret of the B string. And then down at the bottom you'll see the E there is open as well. So put that all together. It should sound something like that. Up next you've got the B, which is a little more difficult, but not too bad. It's similar in the way that the top lowest E string is muted, it's quiet, so you just don't play that. And then you'll see you've got your first finger there on the second fret of the second string, and then over here you're going to press all 3 of those strings on that same fret with your third finger. And then down here at the bottom, your first finger is going to be all the way across the second fret. So you push these 3 only with your ring finger, and that means that this one will be pressed down as well. That's the low E string, or the high E string, excuse me. So it'll be 1, 3, 3, 3. This one is honestly not quite as important to getting the note to sound the way it should, and that's okay. If you can't quite get there, that is what's called a bar chord, and those take a bit more hand strength. That starting out you probably won't have quite yet, and that's totally okay. You'll build that way up. But the B chord itself should sound something similar to this. Something like that. And so the next chord would be a C. I'm trying to speed through these as fast and as comprehensively as I can. It's a C string, and again, feel free to pause this and look at it and figure it out. But you can see there the fingerings and which strings to leave open, and don't forget not to play the string with the X on it. And when I say that, that means you don't have to hit all the strings. You can start here at the second string and just not even touch this. Just skip down to the second and play that. And for the C chord, it should sound something like, that's the C. And then for the D chord, I'll show that, and hopefully you can see these okay. Just remember to keep the open strings open and don't play the muted strings. And you can change up the fingerings a little bit if you find another way that's easier, but the most important part is just getting the frets right. But for me, I tried to write down what feels most comfortable for my hands. And you can play around with it and try to find different ways to do it as well. But the D chord will sound like this. And then following the D is the E chord, which is my personal favorite chord. I think it sounds the nicest. And this one, you won't have any muted strings. You'll have to press a few frets, but the rest ring open, if that makes sense. Just let them ring. You don't have to press any frets for those. So for an E, you'll put your fingers there where they're supposed to go, and you'll hit all the strings this time. And that is an E chord. After E is F. And F is another kind of a difficult chord that you'll see there. You'll use your first finger on the first fret to hold down 2 instead of 1. And that highest note down there at the bottom, that high E string, you don't have to hit that necessarily. You can to spice things up a little bit, but the most important ones are these 2 right here, that one, and that first one right there. Hopefully that makes some sense. And the F chord will sound a bit like that. And then lastly, the last chord is a G. And G is pretty simple. G, you just play that top, on the low E string, you put your second finger there on the 3rd fret. And here, you can either play that 2nd fret of the 2nd string with your 1st finger, or you can mute it. I like it better, I think it sounds better personally if you kind of mute it a little bit, but that's a personal choice thing. It's whatever you think sounds best. And then you let those ring, and then you let these bottom two, you push them down with your 3rd and your 4th finger. So the G should sound something like this. And that is all the basic chords, and that should give you a pretty solid foundation, a good starting point if you're starting out. And you'll find these pretty much through all kinds of music, all genres, all types of music, especially guitar-based music. You'll find those a lot. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope that you feel a little better about guitar and a little less scared of it. I know this video is a bit long, but it also, I had to speed through things a little bit, so I hope that everything made sense and was comprehensive enough. But yeah, if you start guitar, just don't give up. Just stay patient, stay with it, and you'll see progress in no time. I promise. See ya.